company. Okay? So, and the last one is a paragraph in there that talks about dissolution. You know, who will do it, how, who gets what. What will happen when the business is about to close? You can imagine that all your partners are going to take off real fast. They don't want to be stuck with this problem, okay? Imagine you use your social security number to get the tax ID number for the company, all right? So who do you think would have to deal with the IRS and the franchise tax board at the time of dissolution or after dissolution? Well, it's going to be you, okay? You don't want to be stuck having that kind of problem. So you want something in the agreement that says that all of you, all the owners, should share the same responsibility when it comes to dissolution, all right? So anyway, so it's better to deal with that, having the shareholder agreement at the beginning when you still have a good relationship with your partner. So the next issue that I want to talk about is, should you classify your worker as an employee or independent contractor? You know, independent contractor, it's very attractive. A couple of big advantages. Obviously, the first one is a no-brainer. You don't have to figure out the payroll tax, unemployment insurance, workers' compensation, health insurance. You don't have to worry about those things. You can save a lot of operating costs, okay? Also, if that worker is the only worker in the company, you don't have to hire a bookkeeper just to deal with deductions. You don't have to deal with sick pay, vacation time, none of that stuff, okay? He doesn't show up to work, he doesn't get paid. Simple as that, okay? That's big advantage of having an independent contractor. Second advantage is, and most people don't think about this, is when you terminate an independent contractor, you don't ever have to think about wrongful termination. Him coming after you for that. So now, for employee, you gotta think about that a little bit. You know, you never know, he may claim discrimination, things like that. But for independent contractor, you don't have to worry about that. But there is a presumption by the IRS that your worker is an employee, okay? So if you misclassify your worker as an independent contractor when he's actually an employee, not only do you have to pay back taxes, but there's going to be monetary penalties as well, so be careful with that. Now, the presumption is mostly about control, okay? The IRS actually come up with this, has this publication. You can download it from the IRS website. It's publication 15A that spells out the criteria on how they classify or how they would look at a worker if it's an independent contractor or employee. So if anyone is interested, you should download that publication. So in my next slide, I have some examples on control, because that's key when it comes to the IRS or court when there's a lawsuit. So here we're talking about how much control that you have over your worker. The more control that you have, the more it looks like he's an employee. Here's on the control. What instructions would you give to your worker? Now, for an employee, you would spell out when and where he will work, the tools and equipment he will use, the workers he will be that's going to be hired under him, and where to purchase supplies and services. For independent contractor, don't have to worry about that. Okay. So next, on training for employees. If it's an employee, normally you would train that employee to do certain things. For independent contractor, they use their own way. Okay. What about business expenses? Are you going to reimburse your workers' business expenses? If it's not reimbursable, then it's more like an independent contractor. Okay. What about payment for work? For an employee, usually there's a regular wage amount by the hour or by the week. Okay. Now, for an independent contractor, usually you will have a contract with him or her. Okay. That's one way of determining independent contractor. But be careful about putting the language at will in such a contract, okay? Because it may look as if that's an employee situation than an independent contractor. Okay? How permanent is the work relationship between you and the worker? If it's indefinite, it looks like it's an employee. And are you going to provide your worker with insurance, pension plan, vacation pay, sick pay? If you provide those things to your worker, that looks more like an employee situation, not an independent contractor. So, while we're in the area of employment here, I'd like to talk a little bit about non-competition agreement and also confidential information. So the first one is the non-competition agreement. As a general rule, it's void and illegal, right? It's an illegal restraint on trade. Same thing goes with if you penalize your worker or your employee for going to work for your competitor. If you have something like that to your employee, that's void and illegal. Okay? The only exception is where trade secret or confidential information is involved. That you can have, that non-competition agreement is held to be valid because the objective here is to protect the trade secret of the company. So, in the next slide, I'll briefly go over the confidential information. It's quite common in an employment contract, usually in the executive level, because they have greater access to confidential and financial information. But even without an agreement, the law prohibits employee from using trade secret, list of names, confidential information in competition against you. So again, confidential information includes trade secret, list of names, and financial information. For trade secrets, it includes unique business methods. Now, for list of names, we're mostly talking about customer list here. It's usually not confidential if we can get this customer's information from the public, okay, from the website, from doing a search on Google, things like that. But it would be, it'll be okay if the list contains other confidential information such as that I've just pointed out there. I have some examples that maybe I can just go over it briefly on confidential information. That would be information on automobile liability insurance company when it comes to special knowledge of customers' insurance habits, expiration